Okay.
All right.
I'll let you on. Okay. Testing. Can you hear me in the back? I probably don't need this. I can talk very loudly. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chavon Clarke-Joelle, and I wear many different hats. I don't have them all up there, but I'll share with you that I am the founder of CKC Cares, Chief Disruption Officer, and co-founder of the TLC group of companies, and I am the author of the Digital Polycrisis book, a new book that I've just put out. The TLC group, we focus on holistic data protection and organizational resilience through data privacy and organizational resilience. At CKC Cares, we really look at digital potential. How do we unlock digital potential at a human level, more so, to support organizations? So today, we're going to talk a little bit about the human side of AI. So in the book, The Digital Polycrisis, it's really about, and if you know what a polycrisis, and you know what, don't be offended if you don't, lots of people don't, but poly, lots of, several, and crisis, right? The reason is just crisis and not crises is because when you combine data privacy, cybersecurity, all of these things, it becomes one big crisis, right? And so digital polycrisis. And so it covers these different areas. These are all areas that seriously impact us in many different ways. But we also have to think outside of all of the technology, all of the things that we're going through, and really consider it at a human level. And so, first, I think of my grandmother. My grandmother passed away in December, but one thing that I learned from her is that we can take basic things that one may think is trash, right? So if you see this image, as bizarre as it may seem, those are actually toilet bowls. And my family, we were very offended by this in Bermuda, that she would use toilet bowls and put flowers in it. It was just bizarre, right? But I'll tell you, she never backed down. She was convinced that this was the way to go. And before she passed, there were tons of people that would come by, tourists in Bermuda, to take pictures because she was able to make something beautiful out of something that many people would look at as a discarded item. And so I really think of her when it comes to this space that we're in, that polycrisis, right? How we could turn something that could be overwhelming or scary or upsetting into something beautiful, finding opportunity in things that we may not see it so obviously. And so again, when we think about the human side, and I like to call this digital twin self. So here are my fraternal twins, I was going to say sisters, but they're definitely not my sister. My nieces, fraternal twins. And yes, in that video, we were very concerned when they were just born that they would grab each other's eyes out and do all sorts of weird things. But if you know twins, they might scare us, but they never quite harm each other in that way, especially when they're newborns like that. But often, they can retain their own personality, right? They are separate people, even though they are connected. And so when we look at the physical self, so you'll see that they're not newborns anymore. They are getting a bit older, and we're seeing their personalities. The more browner skinned one, Nova, she is a traditional learner. She loves books. She always has. Noah is very different, the more lighter-skinned one. She learns through play. She will try to walk up that step 150 times because she fell that first time. And that's a true thing. When they were learning to walk, Noah would practice over and over, and she was the first to walk. Nova, who's book smart, well, so to speak, they're 5 now, so they're not there yet. But she took a very long time to get up and make the move. Now, this reminds me of what it means to have a digital twin self. See, the average person, I mean, think about it. Do you show up the same on LinkedIn? Sorry. You can hear me though, right? Can I put this down? No? Yeah? Well, let me try. As for the video, I'm sorry. So if you think about it, how you show up on LinkedIn may be very different to how you show up on Instagram or on Facebook, on WhatsApp. So in addition to our physical and our digital self, we have numerous digital presence or personas, I should say, that are really developed through the interactions we have online, the way that we show up in those spaces. The reality is that each of us, that's a very personal thing, very personal. Now imagine an individual who's afraid or is not so savvy, they're not comfortable, comfort levels. On your teams, you may have individuals who are very comfortable with digital transformation, but you may also have individuals that are very nervous about what this means. When it comes to the use of digital transformation, or the adoption of digital transformation, I should say, and these individuals who are already nervous about that experience on a personal level, it's beyond societal ethics. You see what I mean? We're doing a lot of talk. I'm an AI ethicist. I probably should have told you a little bit more for myself. Data protection. I was the assistant commissioner in Bermuda for privacy on policy engagement and innovation. And now I'm here. I live in London, and I am an AI ethicist. I was honored last year to be named as one of 100 brilliant women in AI ethics for 2024. For me, it was no badge of honor. It was a sense of responsibility. And as I continue to do my work, I recognize that at a more personal level, we have to be mindful of what digital transformation is, how people are going to respond to it. So CKC Cares, we came up with the RAD framework. And RAD stands for reflect, as you see, to take some time. Now, if you remember, with GDPR and data protection, there was a whole campaign around stop, think, share. Do you remember that? Or stop, check, and share? Anyone remember it? Yeah? Well, if you think about it, in this space, we have to do the same. We need to really stop and reflect on how we feel in this space and how each of our team members may be receiving the information, how are they navigating through the space in a personal level and professional. I think of the duty of care when we talk about educating people about data protection, right? Because there are liabilities that can come with that can impact an individual as well. But in AI, we're talking about mental well-being, right? Some people, if they have to now use AI in order to make their pay, it changes things. It's a choice how much information someone adds onto their Facebook. Many people, maybe my husband's on Facebook, but he doesn't talk much. He looks at a few pictures, may say hello to people who he knows really well. And then you have other people that post on a regular basis. Now, when that becomes mandatory, it's important for us to pause and to really think about our relationship and the relationships that our teams members may have with AI and digital technology in general. When we look at the A, it's about answering tough questions. Is the technology holding, or was it built with any biases? That's a real question. How will people be impacted? What type of information will my staff now have to put in to the systems, considering they're not comfortable? These are real questions that, as leaders, we have to ask. We don't get to pass that over to someone else. We must really consider what this means. And don't get me wrong, I love where things are going in terms of technology. It's exciting, but we must, of course, be mindful of how this has long-term effects. And then discuss. Discuss isn't just having a conversation. We need to be purposeful. Diversity is important. Diversity is important in many different ways. The reason is because that's how, one, we'll know if our systems and processes are actually going to work for many different people, and if it will continue to allow our businesses and our teams to be resilient in the digital transformation. So what we like to view this as is a more structured approach. Last week, I was in Amsterdam at the World Summit AI. I led the panel on cybersecurity. Not the panel, sorry, the track, the cybersecurity track, and I led a panel. And a big constant at that event was the conversation about more practical ways that we can focus on humans while we're continuing to develop in this space of digital transformation. And so it brings me to the fact that we've got both external and internal factors that stop us on this journey. There are things, I mean, external, we all know several of them. I'd like to talk more about those digital saboteurs, I call them. So one is overwhelmed. How many of us feel overwhelmed sometimes with the amount of technology? I mean, how many different AIs exist for this? Or, yeah, you know, I mean, I actually say, and I said this in Amsterdam, the tech community really should be more honest because we're all afraid. You know, it's not really a separation. It's just one group is moving towards testing it out, building some things, really seeing what it looks like. But the reality is we have a lot in common, right? We're all nervous about what the future holds, as Giancarlo talked about. I mean, we don't know everything in this space. And because we are used to making those decisions as humans, it makes us a little bit nervous about what it may be. So the overwhelmed saboteur could easily put us in a position where we stop. We don't want to move forward. We could just pause, kind of paralyzed in where we are. I mean, what can they do for a business when right now so much competition is driven by the movement through digital transformation? So I talk about in the book, sunset versus sunrise. People, organizations, and even industries, even governments. Sunrise would be entities, individuals, anyone or entity that they're not able to move forward. Let me think of the press and newspapers, print newspapers. Some argue that many kind of faded off. A lot of those companies that really were based on paper products, they may not have been able to continue on during COVID, right? They may have had to pivot. There are many shops that had to close. So of course, individuals who are not able to process the change and be able to identify what their saboteurs are, what's stopping them, what's making them say, yes, I want to learn, but they never actually open the book. That's a resistant learner. What we want to help our businesses grow are resilient learners. Procrastinator. Of course, any one of us in this room, many of us could be procrastinators, right? We know we have to update that, but we don't. We know we need to change this. We need to, but we don't. And that can bring significant risks into an organization and their development. A topic that's become quite interesting, I don't know if you've heard of it already, BYOAI. So when we talked about bring your own device, right? Now we have people who are bringing their AI to their workflows, whether you know it or not. That's a major risk for an organization. When you don't have any policy, you don't have any governance, you've not given any thought or any consideration to the fact that though you haven't said yes, your team are actually doing it, some remotely and some right in your face. I teach at a university in London part-time, and I would ask my students a question, and when it's time for them to respond, they're reading from their phone, which is fine, maybe they wrote notes, right? But they're reading things like, the way that picture looks is in 3-dimension, which is very clear that they did not create that as notes. They looked it up on some type of AI system and they're reading it to me. So the reality is that there are tons of people in the world that are using AI products, ChatGPT, there's an entity called Apolitical, and they really focus on public servants, training around AI and digital for public servants. And so I was on a panel with Apolitical, and they asked a survey, they asked how many of the public servants are using AI and ChatGPT. 67%. How many of their employers know that? So that's a real issue when we talk about data protection, when we talk about all of these things in this space. And on top of that, the long-term effects. These are the things that we will likely have to put out the fires, just like data protection and sharing online. We all had an opportunity to share. Tons of people are afraid of what exists online because the guidance wasn't there yet. And as a person that has worked in the regulatory authority, yes, it's not always on time. So we have to do the work as business owners. And so I leave that question. What voices are holding you and your organization, but it could be the leader, right? Oh, I'm not ready to change. I don't want to do that. What happens long term? It could be one of your team, someone you depend on, that's whispering to everyone else. Oh, well, I'm not too sure about that. I'm not going to go to that class. I don't believe in that personally. It's a personal choice. How does that translate when it becomes mandatory? So like I said, I'm not against AI. As a matter of fact, you see the figures. McKinsey's 2024 report stated 65% of organizations regularly are using generative AI, at least, in one of their departments. Again, it could be a question, how many know? It could be the marketing, someone in marketing just using it. And on that survey, they told the truth. Because that was my first thought when it came to the public servants for the Apolitical survey. I really wondered how many of their employers know that. Because if you don't think anyone's watching, you'll tell the truth, right? But when it comes to the impact on the workforce, it might be very different in terms of how they might have to deal with it. Innovation, of course, when it comes to problem solving. And to be fair, many staff members, Microsoft, I believe it was 78% of people, employees, knowledge workers are using some level of AI in their work. And the reason for it is, well, it helps me to be more creative. It helps me to be more productive. Of course, that immediate productivity may not be ideal long-term if they are dealing with those saboteurs. And then lastly, efficiency. It's funny. At the Tech Summit, the energy in and I was just sharing that with Felicia, my friend here, that the energy with tech is like, well, why would you not use AI? Like, why would you spend a whole month to do that when you could just do it in a few minutes? But then in other industries, it's questionable. Why are you using, or did you use AI? A very different narrative. And bridging the gap is important. Building that bridge, I think, is very important. So how do we do that? Wrapping up, a couple of quick points here. One, identify not just yours. Does any of your team have those? It can be, well, we have assessments, workshops, things of that sort that can help you to see do we have any of this going on, and how can we help them? Because that's important if you care about your team learning and growing and developing in the digital transformation with the business. Of course, there's the other side of the conversation. What if those saboteurs are really impacting the progress for the organization? That brings about some serious conversations and considerations with your team. You want to embrace it, as the twins are there, kissing. Embrace your twin self. Identifying what is my twin self? How do I show up? How do I act in a different space? Is it my alter ego? Is it who I would love to be if no one could see me? Is it something that's quite dangerous? Is it something that's stopping me from progressing? Having a real reflection and self-talk, and then learning to love yourself or make the changes that you need to make. Again, this works with teams as well. having that narrative, fun activities or something that gets your team feeling more comfortable to tell you the truth about how they feel, because the unknown is what could put us at risk. We have the AMP, it's called AMP leadership, like amplifying your leadership skills. And for us, it's about embedding ethics, adaptability, mindfulness, and having purpose around your leadership. And then lastly, moving away from, the DEI and all of those conversations, more to belonging. People belong working at your job, at your business, or they belong in the movement of digital transformation, and so do you, right? So really having an understanding of where you fit, where your team fits, and how we can grow together. This helps with sustainability in the long term. And of course, fairness or justice. Together, I believe that, if we can really get a good understanding and work with our teams, we can have an amazing opportunity to grow our businesses through human and AI interaction, particularly around those complex problems, those issues that it's going to take a lot. I have a background in psychology, criminal justice, cognitive neuroscience, and playwriting, so I'm full of, energy. But really thinking of the wear and tear on individuals' brains when it comes to, and or eyesight, looking at certain charts and things. Why would you continue to impact humans when we could use AI in a way that might be able to help to assist in some of those areas? Developing AI technologies, but also your policy and your governance, really centering it around human values and ethics. And of course, bringing it back to my grandmother, may she rest in peace, but really looking at opportunities for growth and transformation in this space, as opposed to just looking at the long list of unknowns and things that could go wrong. Yes, we live in a world full of risks. That's a reality. We don't have to go blindly, but we should make sure that we are considering at the human individual level how this will impact our workforce. Thank you so much. I'd love to keep the conversation going during the breaks. Here's a few bits of information, and I'm a bit embarrassed. I should have a QR code too, but I didn't think of it. Thank you so much. Sorry.
Next.
Yes.
All right. Slides. That's for you. Wicked. Put that right there. Yeah.